stuff. I'm just gonna stop talking now that we're recording.
Yeah, Matt's gonna stop
I'm not gonna say
making
anything else.
threats to anybody,
I'm not making threats to anybody anymore.
angry
That was
threats
beforehand.
that go against everything that you think you know about him.
Right.
You
But yeah, let's see. Oh geez, I was about to start asking podcasts. I'm not gonna be able to talk to this episode. That'll be fun.
Mm.
That's what the movie does. It rattles your brain.
Yeah, it
Actually, I
does.
am just curious for things that aren't as interesting for the actual podcast. How did you all watch it?
I have it on Blu-ray from Criterion.
2019 one?
Um, yes.
Okay, not judging. I just watched it on YouTube. Is all I'm saying.
Oh, okay. I'm not sure when it was actually released.
I downloaded it from the Pirate Bay. Um,
Oh,
I
2020 is my
Okay, so that would have been the 2019 restoration. I
yeah.
was just curious because
yeah
that
yeah yeah
I was
yeah
looking the
yeah.
weekend. It said that got like a reward, an award for being a above the line restoration.
Nice.
I should have bought it. Really, I probably will buy this at some point.
Yeah, what am I?
Spoilers for the podcast.
Yeah, what am eyeing now? I'm waiting for Lower Decks to show up in a complete season set, which I guess will happen after the last episode.
Mhm.
Which they
It
are
might.
jumpier sets. I bought the Discovery set and it feels like mildly cut rate. I mean, it's got all the Blu-rays in
Mm,
proper form, but it feels
mm.
slightly. And it's DVD size for some reason. It's Blu-ray, but it's in a DVD size case, which is bizarre.
I feel
Yeah,
like
they're
Lower
not
Decks
really.
might come back.
It
Maybe
might,
that's
but
maybe that's naive of me to
the
believe.
sets aren't that much. And what else? Oh, I haven't bought a Criterion in years because they're not on the shelves in Japan. Well, nothing's
Oh
on the
yeah.
shelves in America anyway. But
Mm.
like I was looking
No,
at
they are
Mulholland
though.
Drive, which I only have on DVD, and it's like $25 for the Criterion Blu-ray on Amazon America. It's like $100 for it in Japan. So
Yeah. That's
Jesus.
not worth it.
I mean, I can order it from America. That's what I was gonna do with Lower Decks anyway. But
Mhm.
yeah.
Yeah, we do have Barnes and Nobles that have 50% off sales now and then, which still isn't like 50% off Amazon prices, but it can be pretty decent.
Yeah.
But I guess the cheapest way is always to get them directly from Criterion during their 50% off sale.
Is
Yeah.
it
Yeah.
okay?
Definitely.
I'm so out of the loop on that. I don't think I've ever bought a Criterion Blu-ray. All the ones I had were like DVDs from back in
Hmm.
the day when those were
Mm.
cool.
There are a lot of kung fu, like nice kung fu reissues that are sort of popping up from the like 90s Jet Li, Stephen Chow stuff that I'm gonna have a hard time not buying. Like
Yeah, they
that's
have a lot
very
of
tempting.
they're starting to get some great genre film stuff. Like they have a Jackie Chan box set, and they have of course have that huge Godzilla box set that came out a couple years ago.
Oh yeah, that one's
Yeah.
been taunting me.
Yeah.
Yeah, a friend of mine has the Godzilla box set and the Shaw Brothers one, which I don't remember if
Yeah.
that's
Yeah, that's
Criterion or
that.
something else.
No, no, that's not Criterion, but that is also a great set.
It's amazing.
Um, yeah, but there's three volumes of that Shaw Brothers set now, and so they're both great. The Ingmar Bergman set from Criterion is amazing. Like
Oh
it just
Jesus.
like as far as like Bank for like I got the Ingmar Bergman set on the Criterion sale. So as far as like bang for your buck goes, that's about as good as you can get.
Yeah, for sure. There are no Bergman films on the good list, which is insane. I guess it's
That's a
Uh,
just
little weird.
too
Yeah.
it's too polarizing and too foreign.
I
But
wonder if it doesn't have enough votes to make. I mean, everyone knows Bergman, but how many people really dive? I mean, film dudes and gals do, but
Yeah. Yeah, I bet he doesn't really have a single film that permeates the culture the way that maybe like something like Seven Samurai does.
well, Seven Seal
yeah,
has 203K. It's 8.1, so it's a just off the list. Where's
Yeah.
yeah.
Persona rate?
I think it's like people it's most of the foreign stuff is either war movies or action movies or just like really dark shit and
Persona 8.0.
it's
How
like
about Wild Strawberry?
Yeah. Yeah, yeah,
yeah.
Wild and I think Persona is one of his best films, but it's also one of his most challenging.
Yeah.
Like it's a genuinely weird movie.
It's
Whereas
he's almost yeah, like foreign David Lynch, but
yeah.
Wild
early.
Strawberries 8.1. So basically Bergman is like right off of the list. So
Yeah.
Yeah.
What can you do? So yeah, Mark, I guess we'll get started and Luke will pop in when he gets back from the dentist.
Sure.
So you said you consider what intro you're gonna do? You're not gonna start. Mark was
I
trying to
guess
transliterate Russian and it came out as gibberish.
I guess I will just do something dumb.
Do you know the number on this one?
Yep, I
Okay.
do. In at number 67, we came and saw, come and see.
Came and saw
Come
something.
see, come saw.
Okay.
Come sit
That
on
just
this seesaw.
that sounds fun. Actually, I was walking by a seesaw yesterday, but it looked really decrepit. It was like a, inner city for Japan playground. I was like, someone needs to put a fresh coat of paint on this. Kids shouldn't play on it. It looks dangerous. Not dangerous like a war, though, which is what we're talking
Yeah.
about today. It's films and filth. We're talking about Come and See. This is Matt here,
It's Mark.
and Luke is forthcoming. Apparently, he's late from the dentist or something, but we have to say Luke because we're going biblical today. Coming back,
Hell
it's
yeah.
a regular guest, John Arminio. How it
Hey
be?
there. Hi, I'm real excited to be talking about this depressing as hell movie.
Yeah, it's not a party movie. I don't know. Some
No,
people would put it on their party. I think play some death metal over it, which isn't really great. But I could see that. I could see that happening. Not at my party though.
no.
Well, from the Apocalypse of John, or the Revelation of St. John the Divine, or the
Mm,
Revelation of St. John, and when he had opened the fourth seal, I heard the voice of the fourth beast say, come and see. And I looked, and behold a pale horse, and his name that sat on him was Death, and hell followed with him, and power was given unto them over the fourth part of the earth to kill with sword and to kill with hunger and with death and the beasts of the earth, yada yada yada.
Mark right now of energy there. Yeah, I'm gonna try the
Not a
version you
Bible guy.
tried to transliterate into Russian, that failed miserably, which is Filmi pot numberon 67. Ato Iwe
No.
Odin film Otam. That's
Do you know what you're reading?
what am I
That
reading?
is that's in at number 67. It's another film about shooting Hitler in the face. That has
Oh,
nothing to
okay.
do with what I just read. That
Oh,
was my
okay.
first draft of the intro that didn't happen. Anyway, well now you
Okay.
get two intros, don't you?
You'd get one of gibberish and one of that. So, come and see is so my knowledge of Soviet cinema is just the toe. Like if you've gone to any kind of film school, you watched all of Eisenstein's film, and if you stayed for a second semester, you watched Tarkovsky, right?
yeah.
Then that's as deep as I get, which I mean, I guess that's deeper than most people, but I've seen some, proper propaganda films because I used to watch educational films all the time. Well, still do, but I used to do a podcast about them, and you end up clicking on Soviet propaganda films as one does. I'm not calling this a propaganda film. This I do think this counts as an anti-war film, with
Mhm.
colorings of the culture.
Yeah,
It is.
it definitely has a nationalistic tinge to it, and I think because I mean in Russia they call World War II the Great Patriotic War, so it's still so much a part of their national identity. Um, but on the other hand, um, the the director Klimov tried to get this movie made in the 70s, but was stopped by the censors in the Soviet Union. So there's a lot of things in it that the powers that be did not like. So there is a lot of like push and pull between the nationalism of the movie, but also the anti-war message of it.
To his credit, he said the final product has nothing censored. He's like, that's what he wanted to do.
Yeah,
And
yeah, yeah,
it seems there was also a complication of his wife dying and him wanting to finish her final project.
yeah,
So,
yeah. So if this movie couldn't, if you thought this movie couldn't get any more depressing, the last thing to happen to the director was that his wife died and he had to finish her last movie, and then he went
Hmm.
straight into this one.
which was his last movie,
Yeah.
because
Well,
he lived until 2003, but his
he
quote is just like,
claimed.
dude, oh, go ahead.
Oh, sorry. He claimed that this was as good as this was as far as he could go, basically. Which, I mean, hell, if this is as far as you can go, mm,
It's about as is it well, is this as far as you can go? It's a good question, I guess, because watching it in my nice room here, it seemed like it, but now I'm thinking maybe it's not.
I mean, I love it, but yeah, if he feels like he's wants to stop, then that's fine. Better than him making Gladiator 2 or whatever.
Yeah.
Maybe
No.
Gladiator 2 is good. I'm sorry.
Well, I
I just
mean,
wanted to pick
I
on.
I think especially because, this was adapted from a book by Alice Adamovich um about the Katyn burnings of Belarusian cities. So like they took this material so seriously that I think Adamovich thought that you couldn't, like, he had written some historical novels before that book, but he thought that experience was so traumatic that you couldn't really fictionalize it. So it was more of like historical journalism that he and three journalists sort of like cobbled together as many survivor accounts as they could of this basically genocide committed by the Nazis, and put them together in a book. And then from that was came the inspiration for Come and See. And I think putting that truth to film was just, you know, the most that these filmmakers could do. It was like it took a toll on their souls. Um and if anybody out there recognizes the phrase like the Katyn massacre, that is different from the Polish massacre committed by the Soviet Union on Polish quote unquote collaborators at near the end of the war. So there's two Katyn massacres. One was in Belarus, one was in Poland. This is about the Belarusian one.
So I guess Smolensk kind of touches on that other massacre, at least the reaction to it. I
Yeah,
don't
but this
know.
being the more well, not positive, but I
Well,
guess
that
the more
was
this is on our good list, right?
that is that is a 180 from this movie as far
Yes,
as
yes.
realism. But this is the kind of thing I want when I criticize biopics for being too, you know, glorifying things too much. Is this is, realism. This is what I like. This is my shit. I may have gotten to the point where this may be one of those where I do love it and might not watch it again
Yeah.
because it is upsetting. It's like over the line upsetting, but at the same time, I love like the Russian sense of humor where everything is a little bit silly so that it is or people act a little bit silly. You could say that they're acting mad because it's a completely insane
I
situation.
feel like
Makes
absurd is a more accurate word. I
Yeah,
mean,
it
not to
makes it
put
a
words in your
little
mouth, but
no, it makes it just palatable enough. If all this had been played completely straight faced, and I do really, I truly believe that the Nazis probably were not as like quote unquote fun as they were in this film, or they weren't like cracking jokes as much because they had
They
to just
they were.
I was about to
yeah.
say, are you sure about that?
That
I don't
that that
know.
is a consistent refrain from survivor accounts where you would have the Nazis drinking alcohol and singing songs and serious eating frankfurters as they're committing genocide. So like they're just like having a picnic as they're dumping bodies into mass graves. Like they thought of it um they got into that this was a very blasé task for them. Like the humanity of Eastern Europeans, Slavs, and Jews was just totally erased um, by their propaganda, by how they had been indoctrinated, and also by necessity. Like you to accept in yourself that killing and burning alive women and children is the right thing to do. You have to like rewire your brain. And so in order to do that, they were drinking themselves and singing songs and acting like it's a party. Um
Well,
and yeah, like it's not like yeah, it's
that
unthinkable,
tracks.
but yeah.
And
It
after you've done it a few
it is
times,
and
it's
isn't
time to
and
do
it
it
is.
again.
Yeah.
It's like that thing where often if you work in a really bad job, then people the one thing that's consistent is people are still joking with each other even if you're in, I this is like way off the path, but I remember once like delivering a pizza when I was a lot younger to a guy who was basically just passed out in his chair and was obviously a horrible drunk and just barely conscious, and he had two little girls living there, and they were just laughing, they were giggling the whole time because it's like you I don't. Okay, now I guess I'm comparing little girls to Nazis, and this is actually a terrible metaphor. So, um,
Dropping the metaphor.
yeah, I'll drop that
Okay.
metaphor. I don't know where I'm going with
Well, I
this.
mean, in the film,
Well, yeah, the girls
sorry,
at the
yeah,
beginning are laughing.
well, yeah, we have that. Yeah, the little girls in the beginning are laughing when their older brother is taken away, but the main character, Flioragation,
Yeah,
he laughs. He goes into fits of hysterical laughter at certain points when he's sort of confronted with the absurdity of the war. The young woman he encounters, Glasha, she laughs at him at certain points, or laughs at the absurdity of things that are going on. And yeah, I think like at certain points your brain breaks at the horror of what you're witnessing.
yeah, because you also see her screaming at people to protect them from him because he's gone insane, and then kind of doting over him the next. That was incredible, the depiction of people in shock, like when
Yeah.
that bombing happens at the beginning, like that is so realistic. But anyway, to swerve once again, my thesis statement on this film is that this is what really happened in Wes Anderson's Moonrise Kingdom.
Okay. Sure. I'll have to go watch that one again.
Hmm.
uh,
That's also dark. Anyway,
the weird thing about this movie for me is I consider myself somewhat of a film dork, and I had never heard of this. That's why I was kind of getting on with the I'd seen Eisenstein Tarkovsky's. I hadn't even heard of this. When it was on our list, I was like, come and see, what's that? I had no clue. My experience reading in this case, this kind of thing would be the really thick books. There's one about Leningrad by Anna Reid and Stalingrad by Anthony Beevor. And those are kind of like where I've gotten most of my knowledge of the Eastern front. Of course,
Hmm.
those are Western authors there, so I don't know. Maybe I should read a book written by a Russian or something.
Yeah, I mean, like I was very familiar with this movie, just but by reputation that it's one of the most difficult movies to watch ever made. That's not trying to be like edgelord about it or something. Like Irreversible is a difficult movie to watch
yeah,
because it's being just kind of like chud confrontational. But this I think is trying to encapsulate the horror of war and of genocide in a non-exploitative way. Um, and I think that like so much of Russian history is defined by these moments of like unthinkable trauma. Like in the 17th century, a couple decades after Ivan the Terrible died, you had this 2-decade period called the Times of Troubles, where you had millions of people die just from complete anarchy and famine, and that allowed the Romanov dynasty to sort of instigate this or institutionalize the complete and unshakable absolute monarchy that would define the tsardom for the next 250 years. And then you had this incredible population annihilation that happened during World War II, coupled with Stalin's purges, where tens of millions of people are dying. It was almost like apocalyptic, the way society was, upended. And I think in most other countries, outside of other cultures that have experienced genocide, we just can't comprehend that and how that changes the people and how that is retained in genetic and cultural memory. And I think this movie sort of like gets to the heart of that.
We should probably note that
well,
Luke has now entered the building. He came and
See
saw Come
me,
and
for
See.
I have come.
You have come. Yeah, I guess we'll lay out the carpet for you for your initial impressions of Come and See.
So yeah, I hadn't heard of this film before I watched it. I watched the whole film on one train journey back from Nagoya. Um, I thought it was incredible. It was
Mm.
harrowing. I think one of the things that worked for it, because it's a film entirely starring actors I've never seen before or since, it was so easy to believe I was just looking at real footage from the period. And I was just completely drawn in. Um, it, and coming into it, I basically knew nothing about Belarus or what had happened. I read up on it since. And yeah, I think people, when we talk about like Nazi atrocities, everyone focuses on the camps and that kind of extermination. But what that results in is when we see other genocides happening, people are like, oh, don't compare it to the Holocaust, you're exaggerating. Whereas this is a look at the kind of genocide which is unfortunately much more common, where it is just taking over a land and just, get rid of these people so we can take this place.
Yeah. So that genocide is twofold. One, this is like a very sort of ad hoc genocide where, all right, we're just going to go town to town in Belarus, put as many people as we can into the biggest building and burn that building down. Because one of the most inconvenient things about genocide is what are you going to do with all those bodies? We can't spend time burying them, so let's just burn them inside this building. And yeah, what you were saying is, one of the reasons why Germany was conquering Eastern Europe was to get its resources to fuel its war effort and to feed its own population. So they were killing these people so they could, take their food and take their land.
Mm. And I thought the main performance by the kid was amazing. The final shot that's just his face and intercut with the images and the footage. That was like the one, because we were almost like, the film literally finished as we pulled into our station. The timing was impeccable. So because that was when we were pulling in, that's the bit Mercy looked at. And she said to me, like, I think if I'd watched that film and seen that image, I would never forget it. Mm-hmm. And literally all she saw was those final shots.
Yeah, that's Alexei Kravchenko. Was his first movie.
It looks like he kind of came back and had a career 10 years later.
Yes, exactly. Yeah,
after
he was,
all that stuff happened.
Yeah, I did read some stuff with the directors, and they were saying like, oh, we didn't want actors, we wanted people without acting experience so that they could have these horrible reactions, which did happen. And I was also really happy to read that they did think about his mental health while making it.
Yes,
which is not all directors do.
They
that.
also shot live ammo around him too. So
it says like, the director nearly died 2 or 3 times.
I don't understand why you would have live ammo on a set. Am I missing something?
It's probably a lot cheaper and easier to get hold of live ammo if you're not in a country with like a thriving film industry.
Okay.
Well, you also might do that if you're John Landis. But anyway, did you read the part about how the director had tried to have him hypnotized, but it didn't work?
Yes.
Mm-hmm. Oh, hypnotism doesn't work.
I don't know. That's pretty interesting. The female lead, she actually retired to run a choir and has been doing that ever since. And still
the
is
hypnotist?
Doing that. No, the Olga Mironova, the girl he was friends with.
Okay, got it.
Yeah.
Luke, do you have
live ammo? Live ammo has been a thing in Hollywood. Like a lot of 30s gangster movies were shot with live ammunition. Yeah. So it's not unique to this film. It's stupid. Because one of the cows did get shot. Mm-hmm. They had an acting cow, which was used to being on set, and then like a double cow. And so when they started shooting, the cow got freaked out and started like bucking, and it got shot and killed.
Yeah, a few of the 1-star reviews are
the first two
for the cow.
Actual animal torture. Do not watch. 1 star for the cow. So if you're a serious animal rights activist, which you sure do that. That's great. I could see where this would rub you the wrong way a little bit. I mean, even when you consider it Soviet and stuff. Before I get too much deeper, Luke, do you have a summary for us?
I do not. I will send it to you later because I have an elaborate plan.
Okay, everyone shut up for 5 seconds then.
Okay. So this is kind of a silly story, but the first time I heard of this movie was I'd seen it on this list coming up, and I saw something on Reddit about Ari Aster is one of my favorite filmmakers. Introduced this in New York, and a man uh, apparently was like trying to ask him questions, even though it wasn't a Q&A, and he got booed. And then he put on headphones and he laughed through the whole movie, and then he fought a bunch of people after. He fought at least one guy after the movie. So I was that sort of set me up for this is shorthand for madness, which it tracks really.
Yeah, I watched this on archive.org in the end, and one of the comments underneath was, "This is the best horror movie ever made."
Yeah,
Yeah.
it's listed like on Wiki and I think on IMDb too as a war/horror movie, which is interesting because it is a war movie. It's just the horror is so visceral in it. It just goes with that too.
It also
Um,
it falls in my favorite genre of war movie, which is war movie where the protagonist never shoots a single person.
Yes, exactly. I mean, he does have incredible plot armor, but he never shoots anyone.
Hmm.
And but there were a number of times when one of the two leads was staring into the camera, and I like basically could barely look at the screen just
Hmm.
from
can we
their
really give
facial
them
expression.
plot armor though? Because we're taking accounts from a
Well,
book, and
Oh
the
yeah, and
lucky
it is
ones
like
were
it's
the
just like the
lucky
guy in
ones.
Das Boat who lived until the very like there were a couple of times where they just posed with a gun against his head and then they just leave him alone. Things like that. That was
But yeah, I
it's
guess
not
I do see Matt's point. Like, if he was then also the guy who saved the day or whatever, you call it plot armor. But this is just a story about a guy who happened to survive.
Yeah,
So of
yeah.
course he
uh,
happens to
The
survive.
fact that he survives is part of the absurdity of the film. Like it's
yes.
only through the capriciousness of these Nazi murderers that he's left alive because they can't be bothered with finishing their
Yeah, like,
genocide.
oh,
You
some
know?
smoke blew in their faces, so they can't be bothered to shoot this one guy
Yeah.
at
Well,
one point, stuff like that.
and also, I don't think that if you asked him in that moment to be like, "Hey, aren't
Do
you
you
glad
feel
you're
lucky?
alive?"
Yeah.
Yeah, no, yeah,
Like what I think this movie does better than any other war movie that I can recall seeing is to show you the fog of war, right? Because what's her name? Glasha is there until she isn't, basically, right?
Mm.
You're
Mhm.
like, hey, we haven't seen her a while. She just kind of, fell into the chaos somewhere.
Yeah, and then there's a different female victim who I misunderstood as being her.
Oh, the one that came out of the burning
Yeah.
house, right? Which was
Mhm.
someone different, yes.
Yeah.
But I guess I'll hold my hands up. Sorry, Christopher Nolan, I did watch this on a phone, so I couldn't necessarily tell everyone apart. Yeah.
Right, right.
I wish I knew how Christopher Nolan talked so I could do an impression of him saying he was disappointed in you.
I
Really
think
posh, I
yeah,
think.
as well say is a posh accent.
Well,
I mean,
then, I guess you're just too good to go to the cinema. Mm.
I mean, like I'm of multiple minds about like how to view movies because I think, if you grew up like when our generation grew up or earlier, you were watching movies that were like pan and scan, cut for TV with commercials in the middle. And if you were from an earlier generation, you were watching, The Wizard of Oz on black and white TV, right?
Mm.
Um, but that didn't stop us from falling in love with movies or previous generations from falling in love with movies. But I think, especially with a movie like this, where you're confronted with the stark beauty/horror of these faces, weathered and beaten, staring at you in the face, or these masterful Steadicam shots that go on forever. Like to be able to experience that in a theater, I think would just be a completely immersive experience that doesn't translate watching it at home or on a device. So I've never
That
seen this
said,
in
I
in
will
the theater.
speak to the quality of the film that despite the
Yeah,
fact that I was on a train and I could have looked out the window or picked up my Switch, I was immersed.
yeah.
Like nothing existed except what was on that screen for those
Mhm.
2.5 hours. And I think, yeah, the quality of a film should shine through whatever screen you're looking at it on, right?
Yeah. And how many people in the world are going to have the opportunity to come and see
Yeah, I mean,
on the big
like,
screen? Yeah.
who knows if I would ever get that opportunity.
Again,
And
Yeah,
certainly
even
not, that I could squeeze in time for this podcast. So
yeah.
it is available in
Yeah.
decent quality on YouTube as well. So, it's nice that people can access it relatively easily now, which I'm sure was not the case in the late 80s. This
Yeah.
the
is
only
not
reason I didn't
the
watch it on
80s
YouTube
evening
is because
movie.
I was going through tunnels, so I wanted to have it downloaded.
No, I kind of worked that out, but and yeah, sometimes it's nice just to have it there. But yeah, there is something. I mean, a movie theater, it's almost a religious experience. You're entering the temple of movies, and the
Yeah.
ceremony happens, and the setting is set. You can pray in a forest, or you can pray in a cathedral if you're into that sort of thing. So
I like going to the movie theater because it forces me to watch a film.
yeah,
Me too.
really,
Exactly. Yeah, I
Whereas,
have
yeah,
ADHD, so if it's very loud and very large and the room is dark and I can't pull my phone out, then my brain turns off a little bit.
yeah, same.
Mm.
So, yeah.
I mean, I mentioned a few times my first couple years in university, I didn't watch anything on TV because there was a theater 1 block away from me and it showed a different movie every day. And I worked for the university union, so I get in there for free. So I just saw
Awesome.
everything in a movie theater for like 2 or 3 years, which was, yeah, great.
But yeah, as far as I know, there hasn't been a screening of this that I mean, at least not that I've heard of. So I don't think this is a very commonly like screened film. I mean, I could see why.
Well, it made 21 million worldwide. This is a movie. I know it feels weird
Yeah.
to talk about box office. 71,000 in the United States and Canada. So it's,
There was a great
Soviet
quote
bloc.
on the Wikipedia. I'll see if I can find it. Um, Talking about like the director was saying, like, I don't know if anyone's going to want to see this film, and his partner saying, like, let them not watch it. It still has to be made.
Mhm.
Something like, and it does feel like that. It feels like, yeah, like you say, it does feel a little bit crass to talk about box office, but on the other hand, I think there is value in people seeing this film,
Yeah.
and box office is the only way we can measure did people see this film.
Right. I guess now you can look at YouTube views as well if you want, which what is the view on this one? It's not right here, but I do feel an urge, and you guys can stop me if you want, but I really do feel the urge to compare this to other war films
Jojo
because,
Rabbit.
well, if you want, I actually haven't seen that. I know Luke has.
Mm.
But
Well, I
I
think that
like
is an
this
interesting
better.
one,
Anyway, go ahead.
because the specter of Hitler does hang over both movies, and the original title for this one was Kill Hitler.
Kill Hitler.
Hmm.
Yep.
Yeah,
which,
I
but
like Come and See better.
yeah,
I do too, but it would be I don't know how I would feel if I went to see a film called Kill Hitler and it was this.
And it was this. Yeah.
you'd expect Inglorious Bastards for that, wouldn't you?
Yeah,
Yeah, probably even
You
wackier
could
than that.
You could call this Inglorious Bastards and call that Kill Hitler, and it would work.
Yeah,
yeah,
you're
I
right.
could see that. Yeah,
Inglorious
Um,
Comrades. I don't know.
well, because the idea of Kill Hitler as the title was that we all have a Hitler inside of us, and we have to kill that demon that dwells in our shared humanity so we can like get past things like World War II. And I like that idea, and I think that's brilliantly captured in the end of the film. One of the best endings in any movie I can think of.
Mm.
But I like the idea of forcing the audience to grasp that on their own, without the title like hitting them on the head with it.
Right.
And I do think it's important that, yeah, the kid makes it through the movie without, like Luke, with it, like you say, he didn't never actually shot it anyway, and he did push
I
her onto
made
the
it to
bog
the
for
end
a
of the
bit,
movie believing that his gun didn't shoot.
oh
Yeah,
yeah. Well, that's how
yeah.
that was a lot of Soviet guns in World War II,
Especially ones that you
or
dig up
no
from
guns at all.
underground. Yeah.
That was the thing with
Yeah.
Stalingrad. They
I-
were just sending people in with nothing. It's just we just need people running into the bullets, so go run.
I thought for sure that that scene towards the end when they had the Germans rounded up that he was going to walk up and shoot them and then walk away, and that was going to be the end of the movie. But what we got was so much better.
Well, that's why he didn't kill Hitler, right? So he comes out of the war. I had a harrowing experience, but I didn't personally do that,
I
which
mean, if you ask
is
my
important.
great grandfather, he would tell you that he did personally kill Hitler, but he was full of shit because he got there after the war was pretty much done.
Well, he dreamed of it, maybe.
Eh.
So
We
the
all
thing is,
killed Hitler in a way, right?
Yeah.
Are there other Soviet bloc war movies? I mean, Alexander Nevsky or that just doesn't count, right? But I'm thinking we've been inundated because you get I mentioned the fog of war thing because in the 40s you got John Wayne, you got your band of brothers. They get killed, but they stick together. And here, man, you're on your own, you know. If
Hmm.
if you come close to anyone, they're just gonna get knocked down and you're gonna be in a new situation with new people that's, maybe worse. So
Well, it sounded like they had difficulty getting approval to make this, so I
yeah.
Hmm.
don't know if there were many other films of this ilk being made.
So
Yeah, no, I mean,
Top 10 Russian World War II movies as voted by Russians themselves. This is from 2020. Only Old Men Are Going Into Battle, 1973. Officers, 1971. The Dons Here Are Quiet, 1972. They Fought for Their Country, 1975. When are we going to get to this film? Fate of a Man, 1959. The Cranes Are Flying, 1957.
Cranes
Ballad
Are
of a
Flying is a
Soldier.
great movie.
These all the stills from these do look good. Hot Snow, 1972. That's a good title. Hot Snow. The Alive and the Dead, 1964. And At War is at War from 1969.
So
Who's
this
gonna
one didn't
make
even
it?
make the list.
Nope, not Russians. Russians apparently don't care about this.
Okay.
Weird.
Or maybe they didn't see it. I don't know what
That's
20
just
million
insane.
means.
That was sort of a joke. I'm trying to sound like
Yeah.
clickbait.
And anyway, I haven't seen any of those. You were
Me
basically
neither.
I maybe heard one or two of those titles, but it was like Mark is
Yeah.
saying words.
Yeah, the
So
only one I've seen of
Hot
those is
Snow.
Cranes Are Flying, but that is a great movie.
so
Well,
I
I
guess
hadn't even seen most of the English language films on this list before we started this podcast, so I'm not the guy to ask.
well, I'm just saying we should move west a little bit. And I guess we made a little bit of a Das Boot comparison, but
Hmm.
that one when we did it, I guess the music takes you out a little bit, which it does seem a little more. There is a soundtrack to
Oh
come and see, but it's a little
God,
more baked in.
dude, this
There
soundtrack
were
is
long
on.
periods of just like sound.
Yeah.
Like
Considering that it was about hearing loss and shock, this was an incredible soundtrack in my opinion. Like, oh my God, I was
Right, but my point is it's not intrusive because Das Boot is like
Yeah.
here's a big anthem
Dun,
as
dun,
the
dun, dun,
sail
dun, dun,
subs
dun, dun.
away, the sub
Yeah.
sails away. That's what I'm going to say.
I
So
mean,
this doesn't have that. So that's a notable difference from the German perspective.
that was similar. That was semi-ironic.
that also
I
might
think.
be partially a budget thing as well.
Yeah, just otherwise it did feel kind of documentary style, other than you kind of recognize Jürgen Prokow, right?
Yeah, I mean this. Yeah, this is the next rung up the ladder of realism, which
Hmm.
I personally like this bet. I did really like Das Boot, but I like this better. But if you're gonna ask me to rewatch one of them casually, probably that one.
This
Yeah,
is a film which I would, if people say, "Oh, should I watch this film?" I would say absolutely yes. If they said,
Yeah.
"Do you want to watch it with me?" I would say absolutely no.
Yeah, I need like a year.
Yeah.
And yeah, Luke, I mentioned this earlier where it's like this is the line for me where it's like, yeah, I'm not gonna casually rewatch this anytime soon. So that's my
Because even scenes without like murder or massacres, there's this very famous scene where the two leads are just trudging their way through a bog, and the boy is like almost drowning in this disgusting muck. And so, like he's under the delusion that if he crosses this bog and gets to the island, he's going to find his family. But we know, and the girl knows that his family's dead. And so he's what? So this whole like march through this gunk is totally pointless. So there's that. But there's also the fact that we're seeing this 14-year-old actor up to his
Do that.
chin,
Actually do that, essentially.
chin in this gross mud, and so we're clenching our sphincters for the character and the actors, and it's uncomfortable to watch, but it's also masterful.
Well, yeah, we watched the Italian horror movie. What was it called? Phenomenon?
phenomena. Yeah.
Mhm.
And yeah,
Yeah.
that was like their big horror climax, basically, was their young actress in some gunk. And here it's just like one of a menagerie of horrors on display and 10 times as real.
Yeah, it was much more real than Artax in Wolfgang Petersen's Never-Ending Story. It's
Yeah.
I put it in my notes like,
Yeah,
this is
every
scary as
80s kid who complains about Neverending Story giving them nightmares,
Yeah.
make them watch this.
Yeah.
Yeah, dear people who post memes about Neverending Story being traumatic, get fucked.
Great movie though.
Yeah, we watched Neverending Story 3. That was actually much more traumatic.
I would rather watch
Yeah.
Come and See again than that.
Yes, me too.
You want to see the Jack Black scenes? Another one that was running
Sure.
through my mind a lot
No, because Jack Black doesn't want to kill his personal Hitler.
yeah.
He betrayed his
Yeah.
bandmate over it.
That's true.
Something else I wanted to kind of compare it to. Now, of course, that one has more actor float, where this one just, well, The Thin Red Line. Okay, that's a movie that drifts kind of like this one. It's a movie I tried to I bought it on Blu-ray. I tried to rewatch it. I still can't do The Thin Red Line. I thought Come and See just did The Fog of War better, and I don't know. What do you guys think of that movie if you've seen it?
I haven't.
I
Okay.
haven't.
It's been a while. I've been trying to reevaluate Terrence Malick. There's a couple movies of his that I really like, and a lot that I
Yeah, I
can't
guess
stand.
he's a tough nut to crack, and I haven't cracked him yet, you know?
It's one of those
So-
things where anytime I see a trailer for one of his films, it doesn't look appealing, so I never watch any of them. I don't know. I was kind of comparing this to Full Metal Jacket, which,
Oh,
a different
the-
war.
The one Terrence Malick movie that I really love is A Hidden Life, which came out in 2019 about an Austrian man who objects to the Nazi regime. Like he consistently refuses to sign loyalty oaths or to serve with the Nazis, and it becomes increasingly difficult for his family as like pressure from the party and from the locals for him to acquiesce. And it's based on a true story, and it's excellent.
That does
Maybe
sound really good.
Maybe
Yeah.
one of the things that Come and See really manages the hat trick is it uses surrealism like, bitters in a Manhattan. It's just a drop or two. Whereas I think most Western filmmakers, like, if I'm going to go surreal, it's got to be like at least
Well-
halfway. Thin Red Line's like kind of half surreal and like half realistic, whereas this is just like harrowing realism with little punctuations of.
And I
But
feel
then
like
I'd read that it was surreal and horrible, and I was expecting it to go that Western level. So then when it didn't, I think it made it more impactful for me because even when it was being surreal, it was being surreal in the way that real life is surreal. It wasn't
and I
being
think,
outrageous.
Because Terrence Malick loves, if we're just comparing to the Thin Red Line, like he loves creating images of beauty with film. So like a recurring motif in his movies is, like a hand passing over wheat or tall grass, like as the sun is setting or something. And for me, it seems very forced in World War II, in like the Pacific Theater. You're like, oh, it's a butterfly. Isn't that there's beauty in the world? And Come and See's like, no, there's not.
Yeah, because you were talking
It's
about Come and
terrible.
See having these masterful shots, and I agree it does.
Yeah.
But you're never looking at it like, wow, this is beautiful. It still feels documentary and real, and you're in the shit with them. Just somehow it just does it with great technique.
Yeah. Whereas
just don't-
with A Hidden Life, it's like it shows the bucolic nature of this guy's life in, rural Austria, and that sort of like gives you a grounding of why he's able to have so much moral strength, but also what he's going to give up for his morality. And I think those themes are, more necessary in that film, whereas like it just seems discordant in some of his other movies. Whereas like you said, Luke, here it's the beauty of it is in how stark and difficult to watch it is, and how it so perfectly captures the horror of what these characters are experiencing.
Yeah, like this is a crass example to use, but it's like Michael Bay is great when he's making films about dumb shit with robots. He wasn't the right guy to make a film about Pearl Harbor
Yeah.
because he shot it the same way, right? Like if a filmmaker has a very distinct visual style, it works with some stories and it obviously won't work with others.
I think that there's an overuse of visual. I think I've laid out pretty good on this podcast that I'm a big fan of acting. Like I just love actors, and I think just the human face sometimes is so much more effective than any visuals you can conjure up because yeah, I love Transformers, but like after a certain period of time, like I just have memorized what Optimus Prime's face is going to do. However,
but he does expressions sometimes.
I was going to say the one thing, one of the number one thing that stuck with me with Transformers 1 is I cannot stop thinking about Megatron's eyes.
I was going to say, I'm like, as a gamer, a lot of people talk about The Last of Us like it's the second coming of Christ, whereas I think it's like a 6 out of 10 shooter attached to a 7 out of 10 TV show.
Yeah,
But,
seconded.
but it ends its story on a facial expression, and video games couldn't do that before then. And I think that's one of the reasons it sticks in people's heads so much. And like, yeah, this film, 10 times better and with much more interesting things to say, ends essentially on a facial expression, which conveys... Star Wars, right? Alec Guinness gave us a better prequel trilogy by making a face than George Lucas gave us by making a prequel trilogy. Like, I believed the Anakin and Obi-Wan relationship and the tragedy of the Clone War and the fall of the Jedi from Alex Guinness acting it much more than I did from any of those films.
Yeah, and Christopher Nolan, he does maybe lean on visuals a lot, but he also knows when to put his actors front and center. Like, and that's why a lot of his films are on the good list, I think. It's like those Batman movies, a lot of it is a lot of just close up on Heath Ledger losing his mind is absolutely compelling and cooler than watching the Batmobile flip and explode or whatever the hell.
Speaking of Heath Ledger, I'm about to throw up two red flags for another comparison that definitely came through my mind, which was The Patriot, starring Mel Gibson and Heath Ledger. So in that we have a mustache twirling Jason Isaacs burning a bunch of people in a church to a rousing John Williams score, and of course then William Wallace gets his revenge, right? That's how that movie plays out, and that's just in such stark contrast to, I guess that
isn't William Wallace isn't that Braveheart?
Yes, that was half a joke, but I couldn't remember the guy's name. I meant that. I made the mistake on purpose, if that makes you feel better.
I've not seen both, so unfortunately.
Captain Benjamin Martin. I didn't want to say Mel Gibson again, so William Wallace came out. No, that was an intentional snarky mistake.
Max Rokitansky.
Yeah, the real contest between The Patriot and Braveheart is which one is more historically inaccurate.
Well, we'll find out about one of them pretty soon, actually.
Yes,
not the Patriot.
But for me, I guess that is the image from The Patriot that burned in my mind, and that is the image of even more in the face. I'm going to remember the flames coming out with people screaming inside and getting tossed back in.
Well, The Patriot is at a number of 7.2. Roland Emmerich directed it.
Yeah,
hey, how about that?
Honestly, seal of quality.
Yeah, but honestly, I mean, it's if you could do Braveheart, The Patriots, you can chase it with that. I guess it's not a. There's issues.
I'm gonna chase it with
many
Mad
issues.
Max.
Okay,
But
yeah,
anyway.
let's do that instead. That's better.
I'll watch Mad Max after anything. I'll watch it right now.
Yeah.
Well, it's interesting. I was gonna put. I don't know where to put this in the podcast, but it's interesting to me, at least, that I'm not every movie on the good list for the next like 30 weeks I've seen before. So this is the last first time watch for quite a while for me.
Okay, I have to squiz and see what that is.
I'd have to take a look at the list to see. I guarantee you there are going to be more that I haven't seen.
Yeah.
Yeah, I've never seen Memento, actually. That's yeah.
Oh wow, that's I've probably already knew that.
I've never seen Old Boy, but I've been specifically waiting to watch it for this podcast. So
same. So yeah, we've got like 4 films, so there's one I haven't seen.
Joker, I haven't watched because we're doing it for the podcast. But yeah, actually, Mark, you're about right. I've seen most of these, so probably not you, Luke, but we are entering.
The only 2 I haven't seen are the same 2 you haven't seen. So
okay,
I've seen Old Boy more than I've seen any Star Wars movie.
Sure.
Okay.
I'll get back to you on that when I watch it.
Someone is throwing up.
Is so speaking of throwing up, I mean, I guess this is a film about absolute filth. So does that make it film or filth? It's kind of equal parts.
Oh,
It's like
good
the
night.
lens is
Yeah.
Filthiest.
film, and then what
Yeah.
we're looking at is filth.
Flimleth.
Yeah, but no,
Yeah.
this
I don't
this
know.
is film. This is
Inseparable.
cinema for
No, of
sure.
This
course.
is
But everything in the
this
film is filth, you know?
Yeah, but
this
it
is
doesn't.
like
It doesn't revel in the filth, really.
Mhm.
Like it doesn't shy away from showing you anything, but it's never like, whoa, look at this gore and carnage, isn't it?
Right, we're
Like,
using a good director with a good camera and a good lens and a good crew. Other than maybe they shouldn't be shooting bullets around their heads, but
but it looked great.
it did look
So
great.
it looked great, but the way it never felt.
it didn't feel
It
necessary.
didn't feel like
no.
exploitation,
No,
really,
not at all, not at all.
which I
That's-
think is what makes something filth.
Yeah,
Like in the
But-
good kind of filth that we're talking about, right?
right.
But what did look like exploitation, and I haven't seen it, and I'd be curious if anyone has, is the same director made a movie about Rasputin in 1981 called like Agony de Rasputin.
Yeah.
The trailer. Have you seen this, John?
No, but the director himself is pretty disappointed by it. Like
Huh.
he says that like everybody tried on the movie and they like thought they had a good script and they thought everything was put together, but he's just very unsatisfied with the final product.
It looks really exploitation-y and over the top, and
Mhm.
like Rasputin is screaming at everyone, and a lot of the negative reviews of it say like, I can't believe this doesn't take the character Rasputin seriously. So I'm going to be watching it. And
And I mean, we do just have to put out there again because it was a legit note, but the Human Centipede 2, I don't believe killed any animals, where this movie did.
yeah.
It did, but on the other hand, it's a 40-year-old film from Belarus that I'm watching on a free download, so it's not like I'm funding further animal abuse.
And the cow died.
it was
It was
it
an
died in
accident.
an
They didn't-
It
accident.
was an
Yeah.
accident. It wasn't
And-
Cannibal Holocaust.
Like every film that uses a load of CGI, unless they deliberately built a solar power plant to do it, like James Cameron did, they're doing far more damage to nature and animals through the excessive use of energy. So,
Yeah.
pick your
And
battles.
human suffering.
Yeah. Every time you buy, someone out there buys an NFT, the amount of AI power generated needed to do those calculations is killing, an acre of
Yeah.
rainforest or whatever.
I mean,
Yeah.
everybody say it with me. There is no ethical consumption under capitalism.
Well, what about films made under communism, Mark?
Oh,
Hmm.
crap. Probably also not then. I'll just
Yeah.
throw it,
Not
throw
under
it into
that
the
one.
bus.
Yeah, that's
Well, sometimes Shogunai can't be
I mean,
helped. I was thinking about the Jainists,
It
right?
had a
They
box
were,
office, right?
They were masked to not eat bugs, but I was walking down the street a few days ago, got a bug in my eye, and I thought I got out, and then my wife's like, "What's that in your eye?" The next morning, so I had a bug in my eye for 12 hours, it seems. So,
Oh,
but
wow.
Shogunai can't be helped, right? Yeah, I mean, I wasn't going out to kill that bug.
There's no ethical bug in your eye under capitalism or communism.
Mm.
Okay, well, I got a 1-star review.
Yeah, I
You
feel like
ready?
you're primed for the ones. You were like preloaded.
All right, here it is. This is from 2021. No masterpiece, but a master crap. A typical Soviet propaganda film of the worst kind. They have created many like this. The only difference that in this movie they simply went further and more brutal. The Soviet hordes wrapped all Europe and kept Eastern Europe occupied for 50 years, making even more terrible things. This movie is heavily one-sided, hence my warning. Propaganda and not art. 84 found it helpful and 24 found it unhelpful. That's the new system.
No, okay.
Yeah, we don't have to be exclusive about war crimes or genocide.
Mhm.
Just because the Soviet Union did many a terrible thing throughout their its entire existence doesn't mean we can't also say, hey, the Nazis also committed some war crimes.
And this
Yeah,
movie does make the Soviet army look like a disorganized mess.
Yeah,
Yeah,
because they're more
it's-
partisans, at least in this area of the
I
Soviet
guess
Union,
that's the life of a
Belarus.
partisan, yeah.
Yeah. So
Yeah.
and the filmmakers did make a point of sort of separating the national consciousness of Belarus concerning the war, um, as opposed to the Soviet Union. So, the Soviet Union and I get slash Russia, um, refers to it as the Great Patriotic War, but I think for Belarus, it's much more of like the way that a country might remember a genocide. So it's not celebratory, it's the memory of a shared horror rather than a victory.
And it's worth pointing out that this movie came out in 1985, the same year that Tetris came out.
Okay.
Man, Russia was just
You're on fire.
pumping out the masterpieces in 85.
Yep.
Uh, Mark, I'm just scanning these, but did you have another one?
Oh, go ahead, please. There are a few interesting ones there.
Hey,
Probably.
John, here's a one. This is just one sentence from a one-star review, but I think this will respond. I want to see your response to this. The best thing I can say is watch Grave of the Fireflies instead. I guess you should watch both is actually the thing, but
Well, we
Yeah,
will.
that is a great movie, from a perspective of a country that committed a lot of war crimes. So I don't know
Mhm.
why, and about
Mhm.
kids
Yeah.
going through it. So I don't if you're able to see the beauty in Grave of the Fireflies, I don't know why you wouldn't be able to see the beauty in Come and See. Weird.
But yeah, I didn't want to read that. It was a long one,
Yeah,
but yeah.
the
Mark,
internet sucks. The internet is full of idiots.
Yeah. Yeah,
uh,
and that's coming from us, a country that also basically committed war crimes. So, um,
Yeah.
hey, who are we? Who are
Well,
we?
yeah, in the Criterion Blu-ray, there are a couple great essays in there, and one of them quotes another essay by the writer Joseph Brodsky. In a real tragedy, it is not the hero who perishes; it is the chorus.
Hmm.
And so I think both Grave of the Fireflies and Come and See, they pick characters who would normally be like in the chorus of more traditional war movies and shows us the tragedy of their lives. Like it's like in Grave of the Fireflies, they just starved to death, right? There's nothing glorious about their war experience at all. And in this one, we see, the breaking of the mind of a Belarusian boy who is quote unquote lucky enough um, to survive the genocide of the Nazis. And yeah, like these are people who make up the background of a lot of other war movies, but or just war stories, and we're forced to see the tragedy of their stories.
just the transformation of this kid. I mean,
Yeah.
it's partly the acting, it's partly directing.
Right.
I don't know how the makeup went down, but one in comment I saw, I was like, yeah, that's right. He looks 14 in the first scenes, and he looks, 50 by the last scenes.
Yeah.
Mhm.
This is considered one of the greatest child performances of all time, and I agree.
I
I've
agree,
never.
absolutely.
Yeah, it blows Sixth Sense out of the water.
That's funny. That's the first thing you went to, but
That's
yeah.
just the kid actor thing, right?
Yeah, but he went on to be Sora, so what did this guy do?
Oh yeah.
He did something starting from 1995.
He did
Um,
the Russian dub for Sora, maybe.
hmm. Well, any other big thoughts y'all want to throw out on this one before we wind it down, I guess?
Well, the IMDb section that says more movies like this says Ikiru, Paths of Glory, Hamilton, and Amadeus.
Well, we've covered 75% of
So
those.
it sounds like Hamilton would have been on this list if you made it later.
Let's see what it is now,
Also,
just out of curiosity.
I guess Hamilton is historic, sort of, but
Isn't that kind
compares
of
to
a,
Oh,
it
have,
was
Hamilton.
have they made a
better on
film
the
version of
stage?
it now?
Yeah,
I didn't even
I
know
think
there
it's
was a
just a
film.
filmed. I think it's just
Oh,
a
Yeah,
just a
just a
filmed
film
film
play.
production.
It's a
performance.
film
Okay.
performance, yeah. Okay.
I
But
mean,
yeah.
I out of that list, I think Paths of Glory is probably the best analog because it's a
Yeah,
depressing as hell war movie where nobody fires a shot.
Hmm.
yeah. We've also talked about all of those except Hamilton,
Yes.
but
So that's definitely in our wheelhouse. But
yeah.
John, your wheelhouse is talking about these sorts of movies all the time, I
It
guess, if you want to talk
is.
about that.
Yeah, my regular podcasting gig is Popcorn Eschaton. It's on the Zebras in America podcast feed. We discuss religion and politics, typically leftist politics in movies. Movies that quote the Book of Revelations are in our wheelhouse. The last episode we did was on Shawshank Redemption, and we had Noah as a guest on. He is a prison reform professional, and so we use that film as sort of a springboard to discuss all the many problems with the American prison system. Well, not all of them, because there's not enough time in a single podcast to discuss all of them. But yeah, it was a really great discussion. And the next record we have is going to be on a couple of Coppolas. And my co-host Scott and I are going to each pick our favorite Coppola movie, and they are not your typical picks. And we're going to sort of compare and contrast them.
Not to be revealed now, I
Cool.
guess. Okay.
No. Well, mine's Bram Stoker's Dracula, but
Oh, we've talked
Mark
about that
supports
one
that. Yeah.
Yeah.
randomly. A different iteration of the podcast we did.
a movie where a guy in red armor stabs a crucifix,
Yeah.
which then spews blood, is gonna be in my heart forever.
All in camera
Yeah.
effects in that movie. Yeah.
Oh yeah.
I approached it when we talked about it, like bring up that it feels like a midlife crisis movie, and I still maintain that.
That was Gary Oldman's midlife crisis.
Well, it's Dracula's midlife crisis, right?
Okay,
He came
yeah.
back. He's like, "Oh, my old girlfriend." Blah. He didn't talk like that, but you know,
Yeah. He'd just
he should.
stalk her on Facebook now.
Yeah.
Well,
As for us, we do
it's a
lots of
crisis.
podcasting. Give us a nice rating and review for Films and Filth on your podcatcher. I talk about The Twilight Zone on Time Enough Podcast. We talk about Planet of the Apes now on podcast 1999.
Ooh.
Luke talks about Pokemon on Luke Loves Pokemon. Mashing some monsters on Monster Mash. And
Well, I
Hyrule
mean, the
Field
game
Report.
show is the one that's actually currently active.
Oh, yeah. Okay.
I don't know why
yeah.
you skipped that one and talked about the two which are on hiatus.
Well, there's lots of those. Look them up, listen, put us in your ear holes all day. But yeah,
Right, I'm off to the gym. Bye.
laters.
Come and see you
Bye.
later. That was
Okay, it
terrible.
seems as good a way as any. I was
That
sitting there
was
like, I
so
don't know
bad.
what to say to finish that podcast.
Yeah, how do you wrap up a discussion
Uh,
of come and see?
Exactly.
It's like just pathologically determined to try and keep things light, like I
Yeah.
am want to do pretty often.
John, since you did perk up when I said Planet of the Apes, you are welcome to do an episode of the TV series if you want with us sometime. 'Cause
Oh,
we're doing the movies,
Ah.
then we're going to doing the TV show. It's on YouTube.
I don't know about that. I
Not
don't know
that
if
deep in. Okay, yeah, I think we got the movies already covered, but
Yeah, sure. Yeah.
We don't really know. I mean, we don't know what the quality of the TV series is, but I'm sure it's not going to be mind blowing.
It seems the animated one is pretty good, though. People seem to speak really highly of the animated one, so maybe when we get to that one.
Interesting.
All right.
Yeah,
Yeah, I've seen clips of the live action.
we'll see if we drive ourselves insane doing it or not. But it's
Yeah,
only 24
yeah.
episodes, so we can't drive ourselves
Yeah.
that insane.
24. I thought it was shorter than that. Shit.
Oh, I'll double
have
check
we
it
done?
if you want.
What have we done? What did I do?
Planet of the Apes TV. Let me double check. I think it's 24, though, to be honest.
I thought it was like 12.
God, why can't I track it
14.
down? 14.
14.
Okay.
Okay.
I made it too.
Man,
Yeah, we can handle that. And then the animated one, I think, is 12, and people like
Yeah.
that one. So
Yeah.
we'll get back to you how that works out. John, I'll see on the list what you've put yourself down for next. Which, let's see, we just did come and see. Da-da-da-da-da-da-da. Just give me a little while, but we'll get you on the comic book conversation when we do Endgame, it seems.
Oh, cool.
Oh, am I signed up for Endgame?
Yeah, that's the next one you're
Oh.
on the list for. And then way down, yeah, you are listed for Grave of the Fireflies. And
Oh,
Harakiri. Yeah, Harakiri.
Oh, shit. Yeah.
Okay. All right. Well, I'm
That was-
getting back into
man.
the depressing shit. Cool.
Yeah,
That was
yeah.
that was one of the things I did read but didn't mention was that something like the top 100 films as rated on Letterboxd, like Come and See and Harakiri are like 2 of the 5 that have ever been at the top of the list. I think the others were like Enter the Spider-Verse and The Godfather and something else. I'd seen all 5 of them, so it was pretty interesting.
Oh, wait, no, I'm crossing my wires. You just did a podcast on Grave of the Fireflies, didn't you?
Yes.
Okay, that's what I'm saying because actually Luke's girlfriend's listened for that one. But yeah, no,
Oh wow.
I'm
Oh
Okay.
yeah, that
crossing.
makes sense.
I'm crossing my wires then because you did that one, and then I was like, oh, we're gonna be doing that one. But yeah, we do. We got you for some hardcore movies. Hard to Carry. Holy shit, yeah.
Yeah, I like that movie a lot.
No, my
That's one of my
that
yeah,
Intense.
one
that's my favorite samurai
because my
movie,
dad
probably.
saw it in the theaters in the 60s. I think it was under a title The Bamboo Sword. And then he couldn't
Mhm.
figure out what it was for decades, until
Oh
Criterion
yeah.
put it
Okay.
out. And then
Yeah.
we finally figured out, oh, that's it. So yeah, yeah. So that was always a mystery movie for me, like 15 years. And then finally we got to see it. So
So yeah, Harakiri, The Godfather, Parasite, Everything Everywhere All at Once, and Spider-Man Across the Spider-Verse, the new one, are the only ones that have ever been number one in the official Letterboxd 250 feature film list.
Mhm.
okay.
Yeah,
I
it's
will.
interesting to compare and contrast these lists, like the IMDb list, the AFI list, the Letterbox list, and then the
Mm.
Sight and Sound list, and just see how they're different.
Yeah, the
Well,
whole
yeah,
point of the
because you can.
IMDb one is it's kind of like the weird populist one where people rate tens because they think it's a six, but they want to boast the score.
Yeah.
Well, also you can have a 0 on Rotten Tomatoes, where you cannot have lower than a 1.0 on IMDb. So,
Right.
in fact, I don't think there is a movie that's rated 1.0 that has enough ratings to make it
No,
here.
don't we
But we
work out
have,
small lens because dropped to actually being the worst movie?
well, it was like 1.2. It's like the lowest. I think
Oh, last
1.2 is
time you
the
told me it's
lowest rated.
1.4, so
No, it was 1.2.
okay.
I remember it was 1.2, but um there have been stuff we watched that was, rated like 4 or something, but it's 0 on Rotten Tomatoes. Like I think
Hmm.
Ballistic X versus Sever was 0% on Rotten Tomatoes,
Yeah.
which is bullshit because that movie was at least entertaining.
Yeah, yeah, it had fine action sequences, blah blah. It didn't make any sense at all, no, but
No,
whatever.
but who cares? It was explosions and it was whatever action stuff happened.
But yeah,
Who
that's the point
cares?
of this because it was like, oh, do we do the Oscar winners? It's like, hell no, don't want to do that.
No.
That's gonna be a slog. Anyway, I will hit the record because I too must be leaving.